Welcome to North Shore 9 Idol. I'm going to be your host today, Jim Rosati. You know, they always save the best for last, so we saved the best NS9 host for the last one of these of the first round. So with me today, you know, we had an odd number of contestants. So joining us today, we've got Neil and we've got Cody Kohlman. Some of you may know Cody from our esteemed NS9BETS program that we've got going on. So Cody is here to kind of fill in the additional role. But let's just kind of kick it off again. North Shore 9 Idol. This is our third episode of the first round, I guess you could say. Neil, let's start off with you. So quick introduction, name, where you're from, and why you wanna be the next North Shore 9 podcast.
Yeah. Of course. So yeah, my name is Neil, and I'm from Virginia. Originally grew up in DC, moved down to the Richmond area, and I think that I want to talk about this because I've been obsessed with the Pirates since I was about 5 years old, and being in Virginia for all these years, I don't really have that many people to talk with them about, and so they don't really understand the pain about it and what goes along with this. So, you know, having a place I could talk and yell about the Pirates sounds like a lot of fun and a good way to, you know, vent off some steam. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of it.
You know what? That's pretty much the exact same reason why I do what I do, because no one here wants to talk about the Pirates, so we might as well find a couple people who do, right? No, that's awesome.
It's like Cincinnati South, so.
Right. Yeah. But no, we appreciate you coming on. Best of luck tonight. Excited to listen to you tonight. And then Cody, like I said, some of you may know Cody Kohlman, but Cody, quick introduction, name, where you're from, why are you a Pirates fan?
I'm Cody. I like the Pirates because I was born to be miserable, I guess. I'm the youngest quote unquote member of North Shore 9, so I've only ever known sadness. But yeah, Pirates fan because I grew up in Beaver, PA. It's about 25-30 minutes away from the North Shore. Anytime there's nothing to do in the summertime, my dad picked us up and took us to the ballpark. So that's why I'm a fan, and still a fan living in New Jersey. So it's really tough. It's really tough hanging out with all the Yankees and Mets fans, though. They get on my last nerve.
I can imagine that. Big Jason Kendall guy you are. You got some Kendall stuff in the background there, right?
It's not hung up, but I do have.
You moved.
You might be able to. Oh, you can't see it that way.
It's not your normal setup.
No, I did move, but I have my Jason Kendall poster still in the frame.
All right.
It's over here. I got my Kendall. I think it's what was it? I think I showed it to you. It's a 10 out of 10 PSA Kendall rookie card.
There you go.
Big Jason Kendall guy.
Yeah.
He is him and Brian Giles were who I fell in love with growing up.
Yeah, I was a generation after my big guys were Jack Wilson and Jason Bay and Freddie Sanchez. Like those were the guys I grew up with.
I mix into both.
Yeah.
I probably can't tell you I've been to a Brian Giles, Jason Kendall game, but I know I've seen Freddie Sanchez and Jack Wilson play.
Yeah,
those were the guys. The other two are the ones that that's who they branded the team around when I just got into it. So it's like that was the Pirates to me.
Well, the first baseball game I ever played was MVP Baseball 2004 for PC. And so Jason Kendall and Brian Giles were my two favorites. They were always on the team. They were always the best players. They were the only good players you got at the beginning of the game. So yeah, they're great.
I also think
baseball is a good game. Yeah.
I was also a Pokey Reese guy just for the namesake, Pokey Reese, you know.
There hasn't been a better baseball game since in the MVP series. I don't know how they haven't topped it yet. It's been 20 years.
It was pretty good. It was solid. So, all right. Well, thank you guys again for coming on here, Cody. We appreciate you helping us out here with the show. But let's kind of dive right into it. So the way the format's going to be here, we've got each person's going to bring a topic to the show. We've got another topic that I'm going to bring up here towards the end. And then we'll follow up with some takes here at the end. But first, let's kind of just start off. Neil, what is the topic that you are bringing to the show?
Okay, so I got this a little bit of inspiration from actually the last North Shore 9 Idol that I watched, because
right.
I actually disagreed, and it was the topic of the Pirates' pitching depth in their farm system, because I actually think it's the biggest strength that Sherrington has brought to the table, and I actually think that the hitting is pretty lackluster, but pitching I think is actually in a really really good spot, and I'll explain what I mean. So like right now in AAA we have three big guys who are ready to come up and are going to make their debut sometime this year whenever Sherrington decides that their service time has been manipulated enough. And that's Luis Ortiz, Quinn Priester, and Michael Burrows. And then so I don't expect all three of those guys to hit. I'm kind of bullish on Burrows the most, but like because of how valuable, and we're seeing this in the free agent market right now, pitching is expensive and the Pirates are not going to pay for it. You know, we just put out a promo video hyping up Vince Velasquez.
Oh my God.
And so if the Pirates are going to be successful, it is going to be based off their pitching. And I actually think that there's actually a lot of talent in the system. And then in the last couple drafts, I think we have some really good young guys. So I'm a huge Bubba Chandler fan. I'm a little upset he's not sticking to hitting because he was awful at hitting at A ball. I think he struck out 50% of the time. Anthony Solomito and Joey Harrington, who we just drafted in the 22 draft. And so I actually think that if there is hope for this Pirates team, and I am one of the most pessimistic people about the Pirates around, there is actual hope to be had in this pitching staff for the future, to add to Contreras and Keller and maybe Brubaker, but I don't know if Brubaker is going to be sticking around for much longer.
All right. I like this topic. Cody, I know you're not as big of a prospect guy as you are a major league guy, but
Right.
I mean, throw in your 2 cents there. I mean, I know you've got about Priester. You saw Ortiz at the end of the year.
Right. Right. So
what are your thoughts there?
I want to go back to, the promo video and the Pirates promoing things. It's kind of like our biggest thing, around the holiday season was buy our dirt. Come buy our dirt so that we can afford mediocre talent.
They deleted that.
They did? I didn't know
they deleted the tweet.
That's awesome. I love it.
I didn't know that. That is funny.
But yeah, I mean, when it comes to prospects, I feel like the problem, as someone who's not deep into it, I don't know how these guys perform or whatever. I just know they're big names. And the problem I see is there's too much patience with bringing these guys through the system. We saw it with Cruz last year. It's like, why wasn't he on the opening day roster? There's no reason not to put him on it. Obviously, as the season kind of went on, before he came up, people were like, maybe there is some reason why he's not there. But once he showed up, he showed up. So I think that's the biggest thing that we've had a problem with over the years, is that we're too patient with prospects. We're not willing to take a chance early on them. And I of course, it's because of money, contracts, whatever. But I mean, look at like the Braves and all these teams that they bring up these guys and they're like, all right, we got you young. We still have the case to say that you may not pan out, so we can give you a decent contract for a long period of time, and we don't have to pay you an Aaron Judge, Bryce Harper, Trey Turner type contract. So that's something that I think that the Pirates don't really try to expand on, and it's really hurting them.
And I agree with this because like Ben Sherrington is kind of not consistent with this, because he's gone on record and saying once a prospect hits AA, he's no longer a prospect. He said that he treats AAA and AA basically exactly the same in terms of development. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it does go back to money, because as much as I don't like Sherrington manipulating service time, because that's what happened. It happened with Cruz. It happened with Contreras. They sent down Jack Suwinski the last day before his service time kicked in, so that he couldn't get that year of service. And it comes down to the owner, where like Ben Sherrington's like, all right, I don't have a good team. I'm not going to be able to spend on a good team. So I have to be able to keep these guys around for as long as possible. And that's why we're going to see Endy down until July. We're going to see Davis down until July. Priester, who wants to win Rookie of the Year, he's going to be down until July. I think even Luis Ortiz won't start on the opening day roster. And so, like, it is a catch-22 where, like, it's inconsistent. And it almost feels like a slap in the face to the fans, especially after that press conference where they extended Hayes, and Ben goes on record and says, it's time to focus on the MLB product now. And to keep your best players, your best future talent in the minors while this happens, like, we want to watch good baseball. And so, yeah, you're right. We're too patient, and we end up pissing people off. Like, we're going to, like, I am terrified we're not going to be able to extend Cruz because of how we handled it last year.
Right.
So I think that's a good point. And yeah, I mean, we can kind of go on for a while about, is it smart baseball? Is it ethically the right thing to do? There's a lot of nuances to this, right? Going back to your original point there, Neil, kind of curious, just your thoughts. So you mentioned Ortiz, Priester, Burrows, kind of right on the doorstep there with the pitching. Mm-hmm. I guess my one concern with the pitching depth that has been created is that, a lot of these guys, none of these guys really were top 5 picks, top 10 picks. Like, these aren't impact arms that were taken right out of the draft. So it is nice to have seen, the development of Luis Ortiz, the development of Quinn Priester. Quinn Priester was a first round pick, but he's kind of towards the middle of the round. Yeah. The development of Mike Burrows. So it's nice to see those guys develop into the prospects that they've become. Are you maybe somewhat worried though that, like, yeah, they all look good in that I think all 3 are going to be major league pitchers, probably at least 2 are going to be major league starters. But, like, is there like that ace? Like, is there an ace down there right now?
And if there is one, it's either Luis Ortiz or Roansy Contreras, if there is one in that pack. But that is the big issue, is that while we've accumulated a lot of good arms, I wouldn't classify any of the arms we have as great at the moment. I feel like that if Roansy wants to become a great pitcher, there is a lot that he has to change in his game, like where he throws the ball, developing a third pitch, because, Luis Ortiz isn't a finished product either. So I do agree with the fact that we don't have an ace. I would counter that by saying that the Pirates, when they were good, we had Cole in 2015. But in 2018, 2014, 2013, we didn't really have an ace. We just put together 5 solid pitchers who gave you range from 3 to 4 ERA, gave you a chance to go out and win every single game. You got what, Edison Volquez, you got AJ Burnett, Francisco Liriano, Ivan Nova. None of those guys like blew the doors off anything, but they were above average pitchers. And so I feel like if you can get a rotation of 5 solidly above average pitchers, like, especially in a weak division like the NL Central is right now, that should get us playoffs. And then, you hope that Solomito, Chandler can develop into those stars, because we underslotted in the draft to get those guys because we're so confident in their ability. So you're kind of hoping that these 19-year-olds develop, and that's a question for 3 years down the line. But it is a weakness, and it is a concern, because the only way we're going to get like an ace is if we trade for it. And I don't see that happening, because we're not paying, if we're not paying $12 million a year for Quintana, we're not paying for the top end ace talent.
You don't see any 2-year, $86 million Justin Verlander type contract coming down the road?
Well, maybe if in 20 years when Bob's daughters own the team and they actually want to spend money, maybe.
I haven't heard great things about them either.
I can't say I know a single thing about them. I'm kind of hoping that they just sell the team when they get control of it.
No, I think that's a good point. And you brought up, when the Pirates were good, 2013, 2014, 2015. Like in 2015, Garrett Cole, I think, finished top 3 Cy Young.
But we did get Garrett Cole in 2015, and like he was that guy.
Liriano in 2013 was really good too, but a good pitcher. Like he was a really good pitcher. But no, you're right. I think a team of 5 number 3 starters it can make the playoffs. Like that's a good rotation and probably enough to win 90 games.
It probably gets you like, it probably doesn't get you to a World Series yet, but I think that's where you have to do we have confidence in the development so far? Like, is the development of the pitchers right now with how, Ben Cherington at the moment seems to be able to develop pitching better than Neil Huntington did. As much as I prefer Huntington to Cherington, I would would you say that like it's a process that we can trust? Because if it is, then maybe we can see one of these guys develop into that ace we need when we need a win in Game 5, the NLDS or something like that.
What are your thoughts, Cody?
I spaced out.
No, so I would definitely say that I think it's a little too early to say like what Cherington's good at and what Cherington's not good at as far as like developing prospects goes.
Yeah,
we have seen some success obviously with Contreras, but like how much of that was before he got traded? How much of that was after he got traded? Obviously, what we saw from Luis Ortiz is, the development staff deserves all the credit in the world for him there. Priester has always been a top 100 prospect. So like as he's matured through the minor leagues, he's taken the necessary steps at each level. But is that expected? I don't know. So I guess I'm to the point where I think the jury's still out on like, can we develop pitchers or not?
That's fair.
I do like, I like the early signs that we're seeing out of, Solomito in particular. Bubba Chandler, the stuff looks great. He's just very unpolished, and you're probably not talking about a guy who's going to help out this team before like 2026. Right?
Yeah, I think 2025 is like the earliest we'd see Solomito or Chandler. I mean, and I would also say that, Michael Burrows was on absolutely no one's radar 2-3 years ago, and he cracked Baseball America's top 100 list this past, like over the last season. And so hopefully, I guess like it's my hope and kind of like my sanity is hinging on the fact that if they're developing this well in the minors, that will translate to the majors. Because if not, I feel like we're in for another 4 years of very, very bad baseball.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I you know what? I agree with you that as far as from like from a depth standpoint, like they've built a pretty solid starting pitching depth, especially they're in that upper level of the minors. So like I said, we've got 3 starters now kind of banging at the door, either with big league experience or sitting right there at AAA that are hopefully going to be impacting this team in the near future. So, yeah.
I mean, and I think it always depends. Like, are they going to manipulate like Burrows more than they are Priester? Because I think I'm kind of like hoping that like they treat Burrows like Jack Suwinski, where they just call him up as a position of need, let him feel out the majors. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to see any of those guys until July, mostly. And it's a shame because we're going to have to watch Vince Velasquez and Bryce Wilson make 30 starts this season. I'm going to lose my mind.
So I've discussed something similar to this with DiNardo before. And I think it actually was on one of the post-game shows. And it was that, the Pirates get all this praise for how good their minor league teams are, how good AA is and AAA is, and how good the quote-unquote development is. And I asked him, I said, like, if the development's so good, why aren't we promoting those coaches? Like, why aren't the Pirates hiring them? And to that point, he told me, he was like, well, maybe the talent's actually what's doing it and not the development. Maybe the coaches in the minors aren't as good as we give them credit for. Maybe the talent's just that good that they're able to dominate at that almost like that. I wouldn't say semi-pro, but the AAA, AA level, that it doesn't translate to the MLB because there's more problems than just talent at that level in the organization. So that's my 2 cents in the conversation.
Okay. Well, I would not be opposed just because I genuinely believe that besides whoever the Tigers hitting coach was last year, we have the worst hitting coach and the worst hitting philosophy in the big leagues. Like watching a guy like O'Neal Cruz watch fastballs down the heart of the plate repeatedly last year was driving me up a wall.
That was,
and
I hated it.
Didn't we like set like a record for most strikeouts in the season in Pirates history?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it was done very quickly. Like there were many games.
Yeah. And so I actually do agree that, I mean, maybe not promoting those players, those coaches, but we really do need to do a better job at
that was kind of my point. Is it
not our major league level coaching? And I mean, I actually like Oscar Marin. I don't know how you guys feel about Oscar, but I think he's actually done a pretty good job turning around guys like Brubaker. I think he's made Brubaker a solid back end pitcher. I think he's helped Keller a lot, especially with the mental aspect of his game, because we were watching games in 2021 where Keller was just checked out in the first inning. Like as soon as something went wrong, he was out of it. And so I feel like Marin does deserve a lot of praise for working with absolute scraps and actually turning. And I'll even give him credit because Bryce Wilson looked like a serviceable starter toward the end of last year. He wasn't great, but considering the stuff that Bryce Wilson has, I think it was about as good as we could ever expect.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And the point that I had there was that bringing up those coaches isn't going to help.
Oh, okay.
The fact that you need to no, you're fine. I could see how it's confusing. I was confused at first when I talked about it too. But the point is that it's not the talent that's the problem. It's the coaching in the major leagues that's the problem. And we're not, like, even if we did bring up those coaches from the minors, it's not going to change. There just needs to be better coaching in the majors. To someone who has experience and is able to manage at the major league level.
I would agree with that. I think the question I'd bounce off you because I think I'm one of 10 people in the Pirates fandom who actually doesn't mind Shelton. How much of a problem do you think Shelton is when it comes to this?
It's a tough question to answer because on one side I'm like, I don't think he knows what he's doing, but on the other side I'm like, I think he's just taking. He needs to do what Cherington tells him. He needs to trust in Cherington, kind of like almost like a Moneyball situation where. What's his name? Dennis Hoffman's character is like
Art Howe.
Yeah, Art Howe. Mm-hmm. Art Howe is just like I don't want to do what you want me to do, but I got to do it if I want a job.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those situations I think where it's like he might be too dumb to realize that it's not the right thing to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I guess for me, I really don't think like he's like dumb. I just think he looks as bad as he does because he's been given the worst roster in baseball for the first 3 years of his like I was in person for this, but I always go back to the Nationals game. You remember that day when Bryan Reynolds hit 3 home runs against the Nationals?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We won by 1 run because Shelton knew of this obscure rule about like the ball at the plate or something like that. Like
that was a weird. It was
sort of dead ball,
tagging,
like
the tagging.
That's the tagging, and like the Pirates announcers didn't know what was going on. The Nationals announcers didn't know what was going on. I was in the stadium. No one in the stands knew what was going on, but Shelton knew some like obscure rule that saved the Pirates a run, and we ended up with. I actually like felt like he actually like does care for the. I think he does a good job of like being like a player's coach, which I think is the most important because like. I actually was really a big fan of when he like left Cam Varro out to die, and then the next day like he came out and, like said like I like apologized, like he said like he like lost sleep over it. Like the fact that he can like own up to those mistakes and like come out publicly in a way that like no one else in the front office seems to have the ability to do so. Like I'm more endeared to him, and
I'll give him his credit where it's due. I will, but it's like I had it. I had the thought. It just flew away. But it's like, there's just the fact that we didn't have the same lineup every day for more than 2 days at a time. Like how, in my eyes, as someone who played JV baseball, this is my thought process. How is someone supposed to get in a rhythm if they're not batting in the same spot every day? You're going to be in a different part of the lineup that has a different responsibility every day. Like one day you're the 3 hitter. And you're like, all right, my job is to get on base, make sure there's not a double play. Like I don't need to bring in a run.
Mm-hmm.
But then the next day you're batting first, and it's like, oh, I need to get on base. Like if I don't get on base, it's a failed at bat. So it's like you're putting all these different situations in a player's head by putting them in different spots in the lineup every day. It just doesn't make sense to me to get any kind of chemistry going with the lineup or the players, or even moving them around in the field is kind of insane to me.
Well, I mean, I was so tired of watching second baseman play right field this year. So because like we wouldn't roster 3 outfielders. Like I'll get to something else, but I just remember when the first North Shore 9 post game like things of the season. I remember you, Jim, where it's like you had to go out and say that you can see the value of having a Jake Marisnik because you can see how employing real outfielders wins you games. And the fact that you even had to say that out loud was like the craziest thing, because like this is a Major League Baseball team. And I actually agree. Like I do think that the Pirates did not do a good job managing lineups or bullpens this year. My question is, how much is it Ben Sherrington in the front office telling Shelton to do that? And how much is that Shelton? Because I refuse to believe that Derek Shelton in good conscience wanted to give Josh Van Meter 200 at-bats this season.
Right, and that's why I said I'll give him the credit where it's due. But
yeah, and so like it's just like, is it the front office telling them, hey, we have these guys, we want to see if we have anyone, so rotate them out every day?
Right, it's like we want to play AAA ball at the major league level.
Yeah, is that actually Derek Shelton? Because I'm more than willing to admit it could be Derek Shelton's managing style. And I'll be honest, I didn't like Derek Shelton trotting pitchers out for 2 innings every single time. I don't blame him for it because we didn't have anyone good to go to, so that's why Will Crow's arm got turned into spaghetti. But I agree. Like Derek Shelton's not a perfect manager by any means. We'll never know the answer, how much it's on him and how much it's on the analytics team. I don't think.
Right. And I think as just an angry fan, I'm just like, screw the manager.
No, I get you.
Yeah, he's an easy face. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
All right. So real quick, before we get too off topic, we talked about pitchers. That kind of parlayed itself into a Derek Shelton talk. But just so we can stay on track here, Cody.
Yes.
Topic.
You know, I didn't have a topic coming in here.
Unless we just want to keep talking about Derek Shelton.
No. I'll get there. Hold on. I had to ask Denardo. I was like, what am I going to talk about?
All right.
And he said, talk about Jason Kendall, how he's the greatest Pirate of all time.
Okay.
And I think that's a worn-out conversation. We've talked about it too much. We know it's a fact. We can't keep talking about it. So I'm going to talk about, and I know it's old news, but I'm not going to talk about his situation specifically. I'm going to talk about the situation as a whole. But Bryan Reynolds requesting a trade, and how there are many players that just are not going to want to play this year. There's no morale. There's no sign of wanting to win. And I think Bryan Reynolds is the first public showing of that.
Can you think of something else? Because Bryan Reynolds is going to be our topic that I was going to bring up.
Oh, you son of a bitch. So, okay, I can take this back. To whenever we traded Andrew McCutchen.
All right.
When Andrew McCutchen got traded,
yeah,
it was like, what the hell are we doing? You could have signed him for a smaller deal for a couple of years, not a long-term deal. But then, all right, they trade him. We're like, oh, shit. Like, what are we going to do? And you think, oh, the players, someone's going to step up. They're going to get it done. The opposite happens. They ask Josh Harrison, like, hey, we want you to be the leader of this team. Josh Harrison says, you just traded away the leader. I'm nobody without him. So they love to pull the morale out of this team. And I think this is what we're seeing today, is that you see a front office that's not making moves to win. Obviously, there's a money situation. You can't get around it. No one cares anymore. But there's no real way. There's no real thing bringing this team together to say we want to win. And if you wanted to say that, it would go back to what we were talking about earlier about being too patient. Don't be as patient. Bring up Endy, or bring up Henry Davis. Bring up, like, we don't have a catcher. To my knowledge, we don't have a catcher on that MLB roster.
We
have 2 in the minors.
Yeah. Endy Rodriguez.
Endy's the only catcher on the 40-man, and like maybe exactly. Jason. And we have Jason DeLay and Tyler Heineman now.
Right, and they said that. Didn't they say Endy's not going to be on the opening day roster?
Yep. Straight up said like they're not going to be there.
So what are you doing? You're not giving anybody on the MLB roster a reason to play. Maybe they think, oh, we have Andujar. Andujar is going to be the guy that everybody's going to rally around. He had an okay rookie season. Like, this is the guy. This is the money. This is the money guy. Like, this is going to bring in all the fans. They think, oh, we got an ex-Yankee. He's going to play so well. I don't think Andujar is going to want to play because he's going to have no pitcher out there to hold a lead. He's going to be relied on to get them runs. Him, Cruz, and Reynolds. And then who do you got after that? I mean, I'm not going to get in my hot take yet because I was about to. I'm not going to. I'll save it. But that you really don't have anybody else that's going to drive in runs and keep this team competitive. And you don't have a pitching staff that is going to be competitive either because they, like we said, they haven't been developed yet because we're too patient. We won't give them the MLB innings. So that's my topic, just how this front office is just they don't want to give the players any hope.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, so just to kind of summarize your topic,
my rant, yes.
The Pirates, the front office, they don't really seem to care about the cohesiveness and the togetherness of a locker room and a team and what gets people, together to strive for a common goal, right? That's one thing. And I think you could also throw in there too, they also don't really seem to care very much about like their players, but they also don't really seem to be caring very much about like they're paying customers, the fans in the same regard. So a lot of moves that they've made recently, I guess you could say, it's just, and I don't think it's a smart idea to like do everything to like appease a fan base. Like, I don't think that's how you necessarily run a sports team. But at the same time, I think it's probably also not smart that like every single thing that you do, like kicks your fans in the nuts. Right. So I does that kind of summarize?
Yeah.
Where you're going?
And I also think this goes back to the Jacob Stallings trade because didn't get much back for that. And we could have had him as our starting catcher until Endy or Henry Davis were ready. Mm-hmm. You could have had a serviceable catcher until you're ready to bring up the star.
They got Zach Thompson, Cody.
To be fair, I mean, as someone, that trade was lose-lose because Jacob Stallings posted like over -1 WAR last year. Like he would have been like, I think he was genuinely worse than Michael Perez. Like this is how bad we're talking he was. But I do get it because Stallings was a locker room leader. They loved him. He liked Pittsburgh. He liked being here, and I agree. So 2 points. So first of all, I think Miguel Andujar is like the 11th best hitter in this lineup. So there's that. But I really don't think he should be dependent on anything. Second of all, I mean, I do think that at least these guys are professionals. And I think actually signing like Carlos Santana is actually a really good signing.
I forgot about Santana.
For things like that, because I don't think he's going to be like that great player. I think he's going to be a pretty average player. But in terms of keeping the locker room vibes good and helping the young guys play hard. And I mean, I think that's good. And I feel like that'll keep a good clubhouse culture. I also just think, like as the guys are starting to trickle up, you're starting to see a camaraderie because like you have G1 Bay and O'Neal Cruz are like best friends. You have Rowan Z Cruz, like the Dominican guys, like who are, and so like, I feel like there's a culture that can be built here, but I 100% agree that the front office just has zero regards for the fans and the on the field products. Like I get it. Like we have no money. And so you think you want to do an Oriole style rebuild, but the difference is that Mike Elias and the Orioles front office were transparent with their fans.
Right.
And didn't demean them or treat them like they're stupid. And like, so like, for example, like Mike Elias goes out and every time, like last year, I hated the move when they sold at the deadline, when they were winning games, I hated it. But you know what Mike Elias did? He came out with a statement and explained exactly what they were doing, the thought process. And it gives the fan base something to rally around, like to believe in your mission. And this has been an issue since the Huntington days. And I like Neil Huntington. I like him a lot. But the Pirates front office has never been transparent. They are silent. I couldn't even tell you our team's president's name, but he hasn't spoken since 2020.
Right. Travis Williams. Yeah.
Travis Williams, that's it.
Yep.
You know, Ben Sherrington, whenever he gets in front of a camera, it's the exact same thing. It's the exact same
They're politicking.
GM talk. Yeah,
for some reason they're politicking, and it's like, to who?
Yeah, and then like he lies to us.
Yeah.
Like he lied about it being time to focus on the MLB product. Now I think part of that this offseason is I really don't think the Pirates expected the market to be this crazy. And I think that they anticipated being able to spend $20 to $30 million in payroll. But now the market is so insane that Mike Clevenger is going for $12 million. And I don't think they ever could have anticipated that. But no, I agree. Like, you know, and canceling Pirates Fest.
Yeah.
If you're going to, and
the one thing people look forward to is Pirates.
Yeah. I've never been, but it sounds like a great time. They told the fans straight up by Derek Shelton saying that their best, most exciting prospects aren't going to be on the opening day roster because they knew what happened with Cruz and the outrage because they called him up. Like, I am convinced they punished Endy Rodriguez by not calling him up because of the outrage when Cruz got called up and Contreras. And they're like, we're not doing this again. And so it's very hard to trust in a team that does not seem to care whether or not the fans are happy or that the product is winnable. Because, you know, you are completely right. If the culture sucks and there's no expectation of winning, why should they care?
Right.
They're only there to compete to get a paycheck so they can move somewhere else. And that's not a healthy locker room culture. Right.
And I think you're right, where you do have the camaraderie coming up from, you know, the minors, all these guys that know each other. They're their fellow countrymen. That's something I love to see. But I just know this front office is going to do something to tear it apart. They're going to trade away like the heart of it, you know? Like they're going to find, okay, which one of you is like not the quote unquote leader or the guy that is the glue here, and how can we get rid of you?
Yeah. And I think it's kind of going. Go ahead.
So you think like it's an intentional move by the front office?
No, I don't think.
Okay, so sorry.
I don't think it's intentional, but I think they just find a way to do it.
And I guess like for me, like the difference between like trading away a guy like Reynolds is I think Reynolds was in the last year. Trading away Reynolds and trading a guy like Kutch away. Kutch was in the last year of his contract, and he was declining anyway. And I think what Neil Huntington was good at was retooling. So he got us Bryan Reynolds, who was close to MLB ready. And happened to identify like that's where when he traded away Tony Watson, that's what it got us O'Neal Cruz.
Yeah.
When he kept he went from Joel Hanrahan to Jason Grilli to Mark Melanson to Felipe Vasquez seamlessly. Like he was able to retool. And I don't know if Ben Sherrington has the ability to retool. I don't like his trades. I think almost every single trade except the Tyon trade has been pretty underwhelming. And so you don't, it takes a very special type of GM to create a winning culture in a place like Pittsburgh. And after 3 years now, I don't see Ben Sherrington having an interest.
Right.
Real quick, and then we'll move on to the next topic because I think we've got a good segue here. But I've said it before. We mentioned just like the transparency aspect, like explaining what you're doing to your fans so that they know what your vision is, and you have a common goal that you're all kind of looking towards. I kind of bring it back to the 76ers of 7-8 years ago, where like they somehow got an entire city like excited to tank. Right. And then just trust the process, guy, like TTP. Right. Like that was a whole thing. And 76ers fans like totally bought into this, because they were like, all right, this is our plan. This is our goal. We're going to do this. And then we're going to get this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And then we're going to compete for world championships. So, they somehow got an entire city like excited to do a rebuilding process. Right. And I don't know of any other organization in sports that was able to sell a rebuild like that, like the 76ers were. So, and it was just a matter of like, hey, like, let's communicate this to our fans, get them excited about the future. Like, that's all that they did. And like you said, like the Pirates kind of the entire step here. I don't think Ben Cherington still to this point, we're 4 years into this, I don't think he's still ever mentioned the word rebuild like at all. He has not said that word.
It's almost like he wants to have the mentality of the Steelers, like, because the Steelers will never say it either. They'll never say they're doing a rebuild, but it's what they're doing. I think he wants to. He's like, all right, well, people like the Steelers, right? They never say they rebuild, so we should never rebuild. It's like no. You're missing a degree there. Like that's not how it works.
Well, he's fully rebuilding, even if he won't say it. Like I mean, like you don't throw out the teams of the last 3 years if you aren't intentionally trying to lose as many games as possible. But yeah, no, just like transparency, like, explain why trades happen, like, or explain why we went after Vince. Like, but you can't say we have the financial flexibility to sign 1 or 2 starting pitchers, one of them to a multi-year deal, and then go out and get a reliever and convert him into a starting pitcher. Because what does that convey to the fan base? If you were surprised by the market, that's fine. I get it. But like, and it's not your fault that Bob Nutting's the worst owner in professional sports. Like, it's really not. But like, don't lie to us.
Like literally, if they just came out and said, "Listen, we don't got the money for it," I'd be happy. Be like, at least you're telling me the truth.
I wouldn't be happy, but like, I wouldn't be like I would be tweeting a lot more about Bob Nutting than I am Ben Cherington.
Right. I think I do that already.
So the segue that I talked about, we've mentioned his name a few times here, right? And as far as, trading away the heart and soul of a team, or, the player that everybody likes, it's a little bit old news here, but it's still relevant and there's still a lot of chatter around it. But we're about 2 weeks after news broke that, after contract extensions fell through, Bryan Reynolds has requested a trade off of this team. So I guess my question, we'll start off with Cody and then we'll go over to Neil. But one, should the Pirates trade Bryan Reynolds? Should they just accept his request and trade him? 2, why do you think that it's gotten to this point, and should have ever gotten to this point? And 3, if we're trading him, what kind of return are we looking at like getting?
Okay. Go back to the first part. Should the
Pirates go ahead and fulfill his request to trade?
So I do not think we should fulfill his request. I think it goes back to what we were just talking about. I think they should just buy into building a winning culture, because they haven't done it. I think this is, if you build into winning culture, if you say you're a player first team, you need to put your money where your mouth is. Not actual money, because we know they don't have it. But you need to put your actions where your mouth is. You need to actually do these things. And I don't think we've seen it. They might argue that, oh yeah, we did, because we gave Brian Hayes a contract. It's like, okay, you gave the guy we knew needed a contract. But what are you doing for these other guys? Coming back to the thing with O'Neal Cruz and bringing up all the guys, the fellow countrymen, that camaraderie, do it. Bring those people up, build the winning culture so that Reynolds takes back that request. Not that he can, but that he says, oh, I don't want to be traded anymore. Do the things you promised so that he decides, I want to stay. Second part, what was it?
You know what? Let's go. We'll go back to Neil.
Okay.
So fulfill the request, yes or no?
So this is going to tie into number 3, because I was kind of ambivalent about it, because you don't want unhappy players in the locker room. And even though Bryan Reynolds is not the guy who would stop trying or would cause a stink about it, like, you also don't want that like to be in there. But after the Sean Murphy trade broke and we saw the absolute garbage that the Oakland Athletics got for a Bryan Reynolds similar. So like, Bryan Reynolds is a top 10 player in a premium position with 3 years of control going into ARB. He's extremely cheap. Sean Murphy is a top 5 catcher in baseball with 3 years of control and is extremely cheap. And right now the trade market is dead. It is clear that teams would rather spend lots of money on free agents rather than give up prospect capital. And so, with this in mind, I just don't see a world where we would get a return that is worthwhile to not just keep Bryan Reynolds around for the next 3 years, because it seems to me the goal is to compete in 2024. That's when most of the prospects are going to be up. And that's the idea of like, that's when we're going to start trying to win baseball games. And so if that's the case and the trade market isn't going to return anything, you might as well keep Reynolds around for the last 3 years of his contract and let him help build that winning culture where we start winning baseball games. And then, if we start winning baseball games, then maybe Bob is willing to pay up and meet Reynolds' asking price. So I don't see a good reason at the moment to trade Reynolds unless we just get absolutely blown away with the package.
You bring up a good point about the Murphy trade, and it's a link that I hadn't really thought of before. You just mentioned it. They are very similar in terms of like their current value, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like that. Those are good. Those are good parallels to kind of look at. And like you mentioned, definitely not the return that I think Oakland fans are probably very thrilled with in that trade. So no, that's a good point there. So I guess leading to number two now. I guess who do you blame? Like, whose fault is this? Whose fault is it that we've gotten to this point? Cody?
Neil's not going to like this, but I think it's Shelton's fault.
Okay.
I think Shelton hasn't done. I don't think he's done enough to keep these guys happy in the major leagues.
Save the hot takes for the end of the show, man.
I was saying it's not even my hot take. But like we talked about, it's like, is he just doing what Cherington tells him to do, or is he actually doing these things? Like I don't like how can you be happy seeing a different lineup every day as a player? Like how can you be happy with the decisions that have been made that's causing you to lose baseball games? Obviously, there's that one with the Nationals where it caused them to win, but you're losing more than you're winning. So, therefore, I just don't think he's doing enough to keep these players happy.
Okay.
No, that's a good point, because I mean, you could definitely point to a lot of instances throughout the course of the last couple of years where it's like, what are we doing? Are we trying to lose this game? And
right.
The players, if we're seeing that as fans, the players are also seeing that too.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I am going to disagree, and it's only because of this. And it's because of all those comments that came out around the deadline where Reynolds was doing nothing but talking positively about the Pirates. Like he said, I want to be here. I don't want to be traded. I like the city of Pittsburgh. I think there's a lot. He even cited like there's a lot of young talent coming up. I'm excited about the future. And so my only logical thing that I can look at is say, okay, how do we go from 5 months ago, him saying this, to now I want to trade? And it's a simple answer, but it's Bob Nutting. And it has to be that he made an insulting offer that isn't worth Reynolds's trade value, market value. So I feel like Reynolds probably values himself around what, say, Brandon Nimmo got. Brandon Nimmo is making about $20 million a year over 7 years, I think.
Eight years, 162.
Yeah. So he got paid. And sure, you can leak to the press that we offered to make Bryan Reynolds the most paid player in Pirates history, but that means nothing. Brian, we don't have a single contract that's ever exceeded $100 million. And so it's a problem that we've had, and it's the core problem of the Pirates, and it is Bob Nutting's refusal to spend on quality players. I will say I saw this one interesting take on Twitter. I'm not going to say it's true, but basically it's the idea that after the Polanco extension, Bob Nutting said, all right, we cannot have anything like that again. And so I'm not going to give clearance to these long-term deals for guys like Reynolds who are about to approach into their 30s. I don't know if it's true, but like it would make at least some sort of sense as to why, because like you have to keep your best players around, and and they're going to want money. And so I do think the root of the problem is Bob, and I it's hard for me to blame Cherington because there's no GM in baseball that wouldn't want Reynolds here long term.
No, I think that's a good point. And I think kind of going back, what kind of makes this all frustrating is, and I forget who kind of mentioned it, but I remember, somebody brought up this fact, like the Pirates have this outrageous asking price for Bryan Reynolds. It's like the one thing that everybody kind of it says about the Pirates and Bryan Reynolds being available is the Pirates asking price is astronomical. No one has been able to reach their asking price yet. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of frustrating if you're Bryan Reynolds, and you hear that because you're like, well, hold on. You think I'm so good that the only way that you're going to get rid of me is some sort of astronomical return in a trade. But at the same time, you don't think I'm worth what I think I'm worth to stay on the team, right? So it's kind of one of those things where, there was some sort of disconnect in whether that's maybe Ben Cherington saying, hey, I don't know if I want to allocate this many years to Bryan Reynolds, or it's Bob Nutting saying, hey, you can't allocate this many years in money to Bryan Reynolds. I don't think we're going to really know the full story until, at some point, hopefully we find out, what was this offer that was presented to Bryan Reynolds that was so disrespectful, basically, that he was like, I want out. I got to get traded. I'm curious to kind of see what exactly that offer is. But it sounds like we're both not in favor of trading him, essentially. But Neil, you said, maybe if that astronomical price is met, then so maybe.
Basically, my feeling is Reynolds should be, if he's traded, it should be for cheap, young, controllable starting pitching. I'm not really interested in prospects for Bryan Reynolds. Because, why would we just keep kicking the can down the road? If the goal is 2024 and we have to trade Bryan Reynolds, go get something of MLB value. So that's where I see a trade partner like the Rangers or the Marlins or the Mariners actually being realistic, because they have those targets. But the Marlins are being pretty stingy. They won't give up Yuri Perez, which is fair. But maybe someone like a Logan Gilbert or a George Kirby from the Mariners would be suitable. But I don't see any team meeting that price because how valuable starting pitching is in this league. There's nothing more valuable than years of control on your starters. So I don't see any reason to ship them off because no one's going to meet the price.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there we go. That settles it. No Bryan Reynolds trade.
But if we do it, who's in that package?
If we do, I agree. I don't think I necessarily care. Personally, I don't think I care whether that talent is a pitcher, whether that talent is an outfielder, whether that talent is a, whatever. I'll take the best available trade, as long as it meets whatever that threshold is. Mm-hmm. But I think in order to trade him, you're talking about a guy, 3 years of control, all-star caliber player. He doesn't cost a lot of money. We've seen that the market is exploding. So, a player like him is very valuable because he doesn't cost a whole lot of money. If a trade is going to happen, it needs to be an overpay. A team needs to overpay for Bryan Reynolds if a trade is going to happen, in my opinion. So, all right. So that concludes our.
Oh, you don't want to know who would be in my package?
Who would be in your package, Cody?
Well,
let's talk about
as someone who lives about 15, 20 minutes away from the Bronx.
Oh, no.
All right.
And I've been to a couple Yankee games last season. I'm basically going to name you my favorite, underrated Yankees players that I would want for Bryan Reynolds.
Okay.
Starting with Jason Dominguez. Not very underrated, but hey, that's your prospect that you add into the pool.
Yeah.
Jason Dominguez. I would add on to that Domingo German. I would add IKF because I love IKF. IKF's my guy.
You might be the only person in New Jersey who believes that.
Yeah, I don't know if any Yankees fan.
Listen, I love IKF. I'm a big IKF guy. And give me Oswaldo Cabrera.
So like Cabrera.
Just because he's young, he's 23.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get that. So I think the Yankees have the capital to execute a Bryan Reynolds trade. It's just a matter of like, are they willing to
give up something,
to give it up? I think there are quite a few teams that make good trade partners. I think the Yankees are one of them. Neil brought up the Mariners, definitely. I would even I know a lot of people are down on them. Like if talking about the Mariners, I would be fine with throwing in Jared Kelenic in that deal and just seeing what happens.
I would be okay with a throw-in, but if he's the centerpiece of the deal, I'm going to jump off a building.
Yeah, he can't be the centerpiece, but throw him in there and see.
Now I got a trade partner. I know a lot of people are talking about. I would think the Texas Rangers are also pretty good because then we could get a package centered around I think his name is Evan Carter.
Evan Carter. Yep.
Let me just check. I'm going to Fangraphs right now just to make sure I got my names right. Owen White, who is like Owen White and Evan Carter, just like these really big studs who were climbing through the minors really fast. I'd be okay with that. But yeah, but just for comparison's sake, and I'm not saying Reynolds is as good as this player, but Bryan Reynolds over the past 2 seasons has an OPS plus of 136, 51 home runs, and 11 WAR. Juan Soto has an OPS plus of 135, 56 home runs, and a total WAR of 12.5. And so when the Pirates are asking for a Juan Soto type package, like executives have leaked, I don't think they're that crazy to even if he is 4 years older. I'm not saying that Bryan Reynolds is as good as Juan Soto. I would never do that. Juan Soto is a generational talent, but I think people underrate how good Bryan Reynolds is.
I think the only reason that other organizations think that that's insane is because they know the Pirates won't be able to capitalize on the return. I think that's the biggest thing is they know they've seen this happen with the Pirates before, with Bryan Reynolds. You got Bryan Reynolds in the Andrew McCutchen trade, but you still haven't won anything since retooling that, as we like to say here. So, I feel like teams are why would we waste a trade on you if we're just getting Bryan Reynolds?
Yeah. So, and I think the value probably isn't that far off too, because Reynolds has that extra year too.
Yeah. He's making $6.5 million this year.
Yeah. So there's value in making less money and having him longer. There's value in that. So all right. So thanks guys. That concludes our Pirates talk. So let's kind of get into hot takes.
No hot takes. I thought the hot takes were Pirates.
Yeah, hot takes are
That's
Pirates
what I was told.
So let's go. I mean, you already made a pretty hot take, Cody, but let's go with your hot take. Let's go with your hot take.
Oh, me or Neil?
You.
Oh,
your turn. Yeah, go with your hot take.
Hold on. Yeah, Brian Hayes is a waste of money.
Wow.
You look at the season he had last year. I know we're not going to rely on him for his offense, but when you don't have pitching, you kind of need a guy with some offense. He had 41 RBIs, 7 home runs. Sure, he had 20 stolen bases. I like the 20 stolen bases. But the other question is he going to keep this consistent? Is he going to improve? I don't see it. I see him as a Gold Glover defensively, but offensively, what's he going to help us with? I think at best he'll be a Josh Harrison caliber player, and that's just what it's going to be. I just feel like he was a waste of money, and he's not going to win us games offensively. And in this MLB today, I think that's what you need is runs. I think in any MLB, in any era of baseball, you need to score runs to win the game.
Mike's gonna like that take.
Yes, he is.
I do not. I am shocked. I do not like that take at all because I'm not gonna say his offense is disappointing, but he is not making that much money, even for the Pirates. Even for the Pirates, when we were spending money, it was not uncommon to give guys $8-9 million a year, and even in terms of Bob Nunning's pockets, I legitimately don't think that we're missing out on a Reynolds extension or a Cruz extension because of Bryan Hayes' contract. It is so team friendly. It is almost asinine. And Bryan Hayes is still an extremely valuable player, even if the offense just isn't there. Like even if he's a league average bat, he is good for 3 to 4 wins above replacement every single year. For example, and the current rate, I believe that for WAR if you want to put a dollar amount on WAR, it's $8 million, and he is doubling or tripling or quadrupling that every year. And I think even if he doesn't improve that much as a hitter. And I think, as JT Brubaker will say, after the atrocious defense he had to suffer this year, he was the unluckiest pitcher in baseball. Having a guy like Bryan Hayes at the corner makes everything easier, and it can help pick up a pitching staff that struggles. So I think I understand where you're coming from, but I just don't think the money's bad enough to make him a waste of money.
I mean, I like runs.
Hey, it's a hot take for a reason. It's a hot take for a reason.
I like it's way hotter than my take, so I applaud you.
All right.
I pander to the fan base of Bucko Mike.
There you go. Bucko Mike is my idol. My hot take: the Pirates should trade Henry Davis. I am not high on Henry Davis as a prospect. I think the fact he's not going to stick at catcher, I just don't see it. Like his defensive grades in the minors haven't been good, and his wrist injuries are really proving fatal to that bat right now. I've read reports from him in the Winter League about how his makeup isn't looking good, and in AA, he's really struggling. And with the advent of Endy Rodriguez looking like a potential superstar, I feel like trading Davis, because, I mean, at this rate, he's going to be a first baseman. And if he realizes that potential, it's the first real first baseman we've had since, Derek Bell? And that would be great. But I feel like I don't trust it at the moment, and I would trade him for major league help to a rebuilding team while his value is still high, because I don't think the value is going to go that much higher.
So Cody says Bryan Hayes isn't worth it.
Yeah.
Neil says Henry Davis from my alma mater, the Louisville Cardinals, isn't worth it.
Not doing yourself any favors here, Neil.
I mean, I've harassed Jim on Twitter enough about the Louisville Cardinals, so I've already dug my grave.
You know what, too? Another take that Bucko Mike would completely agree with.
Really?
And I think that's why I kind of
Bucko Mike hates Henry Davis.
I don't hate Henry Davis, but I think he made some great points on why it's a great time to.
I won't say hate is the right word, because I still think he can become a serviceable major league player, but I don't think the bat is going to be worth it, since he's probably going to move into first base or corner outfield, and or DH, and those guys have to mash. And his pop-up rate, like the fact he's not getting good contact on the ball, it really worries me in the minors.
So we agree corner infielders need to mash, right?
Yes, but Davis doesn't bring the defensive value that Bryan Hayes has.
But we agree on that point.
Yeah. Listen.
All right.
Yeah.
Pirates better not trade Henry Davis. Pirates trade Henry Davis. I'm done. Done.
Boy, listen. You'd probably be okay with it if we had Endy start in the majors and he's a superstar.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I honestly completely forgot about the Louisville connection. That makes it even better. That makes it even a spicier hot take.
Oh man. All right. So, okay. Well, hey guys, I appreciate both of you coming on. One last question, non-Pirates related. Mm-hmm. Neil, you're a history teacher.
I am.
I'm a pretty good history buff too.
All right.
What's your favorite war?
I knew it.
What's your favorite war and why?
There's a right answer.
Now, no wars are good, right? Like war is bad, but like, what's your favorite war to kind of go down?
I probably have two, and they're pretty extremely basic. But because I grew up in Virginia, the Civil War is just so fascinating to me. I grew up going to all the battlefields, like driving around with my family, walking around. I got to camp as a Boy Scout at Gettysburg. I even almost applied. I almost worked at Gettysburg for a summer as like those people who dress up in uniform.
All right.
So this like the politics around the Civil War, the fact that like the entire nation was like thrown apart, like the tyranny from the North of like like throwing all the Maryland state senators in jail, but also it's also just like the advent of modern warfare with like new technologies that were meant to kill as many people as possible. Like there is just so much that the Civil War has to offer that I could spend years learning more about it and I wouldn't be upset. Another shout out is the second like the Hannibal, the Punic War, the Second Punic War.
Okay. See, that's an obscure one. A lot of people might not know about those.
Right.
Yeah. But that would be mine.
Yeah. No, I'm a big Civil War nerd right here. Been to all the battlefields too, so I know all that. Cody, favorite war.
See, I thought there was a right answer to this question.
There's no right answer.
No, there is, because I've been in the group chat and I believe the right answer is the War of 1812.
Yeah. Ooh. Also an interesting war.
One that I don't know much about.
I feel like
one in school where we had just like skimmed over it.
We skim over the ones that we lose.
Exactly.
Well, we skim over the one. There's just too much history in there's too much stuff to go over in the U.S. curriculum. Like trying to squeeze it all in. As someone with experience of trying to do it, it is a nightmare.
But
like U.S. history, I feel like in school it was like you learn all about the beginning parts, and then it's like once you get like Civil War, Reconstruction, and then the rest of it's just like, and then there was the 1900s. Was it.
When you have such limited time, you have to pick and choose what you think the most important are. Mm-hmm. And so what I've learned is I don't think it's like maliciousness. I just think it's like people who decided 50 years ago what the most important events that every kid had to learn, and we kind of haven't moved off of that. Whether you agree or disagree with it, that's kind of like what we got.
No.
So Cody, why is the
no? Okay, no, I don't know. I just know that's what you and Ryan talk about all the time. My real answer is World War One.
Ooh, I love
World War One because it's solely trench warfare, very wild stuff. I mean,
we talking about innovations and like new ways to kill mass amounts of people. World War One's definitely
No Man's Land is fucking wild. Like, and just watching, like, there's more movies being made about World War One now. You have 1917, which is one of my favorite movies right now. I watched it when it first came out. It was amazing. I was like, this is so intense. I just started watching the new one that came out. It's a German film.
Yeah, All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah, All Quiet on the Western Front.
I'm gonna watch that with my parents over my Christmas break. I'm kind of excited.
It's a long one. It's like 2 hours and 45 minutes. So
you were right up my alley.
I started watching it, and then I saw how long it was. I'm like, I'm not watching this right now. I was like, this is too intense for me to watch right now.
Yeah.
But that's one that's on my list to watch, and the trench warfare and the ways, the innovation of killing, and just you also had to be concerned about trench foot. Like trench foot's insane. Like you could literally just be like, "Oh, it rained today for like 20 minutes. My foot's about to fall off."
So
like,
one of my favorite things as a teacher is when we get to the World War I unit and showing all my poor 7th graders pictures of trench foot.
Right, yeah.
It is
that traumatized me as a 7th grader.
It is the best day.
But yeah, just like even like the disease, even though it wasn't really a war known for its like, chemical warfare. I guess a little bit with mustard gas, but like just something biological like that just it's going to happen to both sides. Like there's no way of stopping it.
Yeah.
It's kind of insane.
All right.
I will also shout out King Philip's War. You've probably never heard of it, but it is fascinating, and I would highly recommend everyone look into it.
King Philip's War.
Yeah.
Okay.
Between the colonists in New England and the Native American tribes in the surrounding area. Fascinating war.
Okay. I don't know that one. I'll check it out. All right. 1 hour and 9 minutes. I think we went a little bit longer than everybody else, but like just by a little bit. So No, I appreciate you guys. Cody, again, thanks for coming on, holding down the fort. Neil,
problem.
glad that we were able to finally get you squeezed in here.
I
Thank
had a
you
great
so
time.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was fun. Hope you guys both enjoyed it. And yeah, that's all I got. I think this will be posted up either tonight or tomorrow or sometime. We'll let you guys know.
Well, hey,
Awesome.
just to give myself a shout out here, everybody watch NS9 Bets. NS9 Bets is a good time. It's a fun time, or what's the saying? There's a saying.
You're the one saying it.
It's like it's been real, it's been fun, but it has been real fun. That's NS9 Bets. It's real, it's fun, but it's not real fun.
Got it. All right.
But we have the bowl season episodes coming out. First episode comes out Thursday. Second episode comes out Sunday. So that'll give you everything you need to know about bowl season. And we have more episodes coming out. There's 6 episodes total. So
real quick, who's winning the Fenway Bowl?
I forget who I think I said Louisville on the podcast. That comes out Thursday.
Who is Louisville playing?
Cincinnati. It's a whole cluster.
I'm taking Louisville. Cincinnati is kind of in shambles right now.
That game. I think that's the game we talked the most about because there's the most happening.
So do you win the keg of nails if you win that bowl game too?
Yeah. Yes. We are bringing the keg of nails to Boston.
That is the best trophy. I love it so much.
It's an amazing trophy.
It's going to be great. Right. But other than that, we do NS9 Bets live. We've changed it to Sundays, Sunday mornings, Sunday noon. So if you want to know what we're doing for the NFL slate, that's where you can catch us is Sunday at noon.
There you go. Make sure you chime in. Just do the opposite of what they pick, and then you're good.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, guys. Appreciate you all. Again, thank you, Cody. Thank you, Neil. I'm Jim. Peace out, guys.
See ya.
See you guys.